The coronavirus pandemic swept almost the entire territory of planet Earth in 2020. COVID-19 divided the human life to before and after. What's happening now in different countries of the world? Did we manage to adapt to the new reality? What is the world like during quarantine? All this in the program Stop COVID. "2020 is coming to an end. Hardly anyone would argue that the main event of the year that shook the entire planet was the pandemic of the new coronavirus infection. The world is taking stock and hoping for the best. And the well-known saying that you want to leave everything bad in the past year is more relevant today than ever. The number of coronavirus cases in Russia is now approaching 3 million people. Every day in Moscow, they detect 7,000 cases. Nevertheless, the New Year mood is still felt in the city. People really want to say goodbye to 2020. It was very difficult for Russians, as well as for people all over the world. This year, Moscow said goodbye to the mass New Year celebrations, as in many other cities and countries that were cancelled due to COVID-19. There will be no entertainment programs in restaurants on New Year's Eve. However, a festive atmosphere reigns on the streets. Russians are ready to spend about 25,000 rubles for a small family on New Year's celebrations. This became clear from the survey. Food prices have risen significantly due to the pandemic. Every time on the eve of the New Year, experts draw up the so-called Olivier rating to learn how much the ingredients for the favorite salad have risen in price. So this year, food has grown by about 10%, and for a family of 4 people, Olivier will cost about 1,000 rubles.
Оливье будет стоить примерно 1000 рублей.
Every New Year's holiday, I think that I will not cook Olivier and herring under fur coat salads, but still, I cook them anyway every year. We buy mandarins and champagne, of course. I will celebrate the New Year at work, as a waiter at the hotel. The pandemic has changed the global labor market, and the massive shift to distance work became the main trend of 2020. In Russia, millions of people have also switched to remote work.
Я давно мечтала о такой работе, когда просыпаешься, спокойно собираешься и включаешь.
I've long dreamt of this kind of work when you wake up, get dressed, and turn on your favorite laptop. I do gifts, and that takes inspiration. Where to get the inspiration, if not at home? Therefore, I'm very happy. It's just wonderful.
А где вдохновение, как не дома? Поэтому я очень счастлива. Это просто прекрасно.
Well, no, remote work is not for me. I'm used to going to the office, on the subway and public transport, and communicate with people in the office as well. Look, it's cold now. I would love to work at home now and be warm. You can't just put on one blouse, sit in felt boots and cozy pants, not waste time on getting ready for work and on the road. By the way, according to polls, a third of Russian companies decided not to hold corporate events because of the coronavirus. Another 30% will host their parties online, and the rest of the business owners admitted that they have no money for a corporate event this year. And if the corporate party does take place, it will be held in accordance with the anti-COVID rules. It will be strictly monitored, and in case of any violations, there will be fines. In accordance with the new rules, restaurants, cafes, and other establishments in Moscow must close no later than 11 p.m. Distance learning in universities and colleges has been extended until January 15th. Until that time, cinemas and theaters were allowed only 25% occupancy, and senior citizens and people at risk were advised to stay at home.
По всей Москве сейчас действуют антиковидные правила, в том числе и так называемая система QR-кодов.
Anti-COVID rules are enforced throughout Moscow. There is also the QR code system. A person must register in order to enter the establishment. Restaurants, beauty salons, cinemas, exhibition halls, theaters, museums, and even baths have already connected to the service. For example, this is how the StopCovid Film Festival is held at the House of Cinema. All guests are registered.
В условиях пандемии сейчас проходит московский кинофестиваль «Сталкер» в Доме кино. Все гости зарегистрированы.
There are no difficulties in holding a film festival. There is one difficulty with the audience. Since now there is a pandemic and we're all a little scared, the audience is afraid to come and watch good Russian cinema. But the film festival took place anyway. There are no problems. There are spectators. Directors are happy to showcase their films. The House of Cinema, where we have been holding the festival for 26 years, helps us in every possible way.
А я начинаю свой концерт и хочу начать ее презентации нового клипа, который называется «Сохраним мир».
And this is a concert by Kazakh singer Yerzhan Nurgaliyev. The pandemic has left many singers out of work. This is the first performance of Yerzhan in a long time. Dozens of people come to listen to his voice. Yerzhan Nurgaliyev himself will tell us how artists live during the pandemic.
О сложном времени, как ему живется в условиях пандемии.
Количество выступлений и заказов у артистов, конечно...
The number of orders has certainly decreased, but there are other opportunities online, for example, video congratulations. I'm sure that after the crisis and imprisonment we were forced to due to the pandemic, there will be dawn.
После глубокого вот такого заточения, да, в которое нас ввела пандемия, настанет расцвет.
Every
year on the eve of the new year, Moscow hosts a large festival called Journey to Christmas. It includes fairs, concerts, and exhibitions. Everything is very bright and fun, but this year it's different. The festival was cancelled. Also, there will be no traditional New Year's parties.
Ну и также не будут проводить традиционные новогодние елки.
The streets and squares of the city were decorated with festive illumination, but this year the Moscow authorities spent 4 times less money on this than usual. Many decorations were left from previous years, and they decided not to buy the new ones. The Red Square and Goop shopping center this winter season are the central place where you can see holiday shopping chalets. Everybody else skates here. Tickets can be bought both at the box office and online. Everyone is asked to maintain a social distance, but masks may not be worn while skating.
Маски можно не надевать. Кстати, всех, кто уже переболел коронавирусом, просят стать донорами плазмы.
Everyone who has already had coronavirus is asked to become plasma donors. This is one of the most effective ways to treat already infected patients. You can hear the announcements about it everywhere, in the subway, on radio and TV. And by the way, there are more and more of such plasma donors every day. On December 1st, vaccination started in Moscow. At the first stage, doctors, teachers, and social workers receive vaccinations. Now this list has been slightly expanded, and cultural and trade workers have joined them. The authorities very much hope that in 2021, thanks to all the vaccines that are being developed, this deadly virus can be brought under control, and all these nightmares will finally end. Olga Nagaeva from Moscow, especially for Kazakh TV. In Georgia, the first case of coronavirus was detected at the end of February 2020. The country immediately introduced severe restrictions. They closed the borders, declared an emergency regime, and stopped the work of all organizations, except grocery stores, pharmacies, and hospitals. The strict measures helped. In May, there were only 600 cases of COVID-19 in Georgia. But in October, as in many countries, the second wave began. And if in the spring the daily cases of infection were low, then in early December the record was more than 5,000 cases per day. Many Kazakhstan citizens know and love Georgia for its hospitality, open people and fists, bright, cheerful and crowded. This is how we are used to seeing Tbilisi. However, this year it says farewell to 2020 with empty streets and closed shops. The second lockdown has been in effect in the country since November 28. In Georgia, the work of shops, restaurants, public transport was banned again and a curfew was imposed. In case of violation, serious fines are provided. The coronavirus is to blame for everything, of course. Now Georgia is experiencing an increase in the incidence of diseases. 4,000 patients are diagnosed here per day, and this despite the fact that the country's population is slightly less than 4 million people. Authorities are asking to adhere to quarantine rules, giving fines for not wearing masks, and talking about a shortage of hospitals and doctors. However, people do not panic. There are no lines at pharmacies, and the population looks rather calm. The situation is still very sad for Georgia. The statistics are very bad. Restrictions are needed, of course. I personally justify many measures, but many measures do not work in practice. They are more likely to bring harm than benefit. Let's say the closing of restaurants. I can definitely say that Georgians have not stopped spending time together, but now it's at home. Large companies also gather, but no one measures the temperature there. There is more irresponsibility.
Все так же собираются большие компании, но там уже температуру никто не мерит, там больше безответственности.
Какая ситуация на самом деле довольно...
In fact, the situation is rather strange. When all this was announced for the first time, everyone was so scared, although there were only a few cases and everyone was very strict about everything. They were afraid to approach each other. And now there seems to be a huge number of cases, but in my opinion, everything on the contrary has become so relaxed, which is rather strange. But measures must be taken naturally. We have to put up with it, although, of course, it's more difficult for us.
Нам, конечно, сложно.
However, despite the difficulties, including material ones, the Georgians, as expected, are preparing for the new year. In Georgia, New Year's traditions combine elements of paganism and orthodoxy. For example, they begin to prepare for the holiday on December 17th on Barbaroba or simply the day of St. Barbara. Lobiani, a traditional bean dish, is also prepared on this date. For Georgians, New Year's Eve itself is an endless store of guests and a huge number of traditional dishes. The New Year's must dessert is kazanagi. This is a traditional Georgian sweet made of honey and walnuts. The nuts are finely chopped and the honey is lightly heated over the fire. When we have all the ingredients ready, we throw walnuts into a cauldron with honey. Try to stir it with a spoon so that everything turns into homogeneous mass. Then we spread it out on a wooden board, roll it out with a rolling pin, cut it into rhombuses or squares, and that's it. The dish is good to go. Here it is, kazanagi is ready. When guests come and the family is sitting on the New Year's table at midnight, most often the head of the family takes one piece and gives it to you with the words, "Let your old age be as sweet as this dessert." It sounds in Georgian like...
Вот так, пусть такая сладкая будет у тебя старость. На грузинском это звучит "асетка билет дами берди".
And here is the traditional Georgian Christmas tree, chichilaki, which is made from a hazel branch. It's decorated with ivy, sweets, dried fruits, churchhela. Even during a pandemic, traditions in Georgia are honored and observed. On the eve of January 19th, this chichilaki tree must be burned. Fire purifies the aura, and when we set fire to chichilaki tree, deep down we want this cleansing fire to take away all the troubles of the past year. Another interesting New Year tradition in Georgia is to invite a person with a happy leg to visit. It's believed that it will bring good luck for the next year. Health and luck are perhaps the most pressing desires for this new year.
Я хочу выиграть джекпот.
I want to win the jackpot because I need it very much. And there is one more wish. I have 2 sick people. I want them to get well.
Больных человека дома. Я хочу, чтобы они выздоровели.
I wish for the best in the new year. At least a small improvement in the new year. At least a small one. It seems this year the person with a happy leg will be asked for one thing: an end to the pandemic and return to a normal life. Now in Georgia there is a strict quarantine, and from 9 p.m. people are not allowed to go out at all, as there is a curfew. Fortunately, it will be cancelled at least on New Year's Eve. The festivities will still take place, although they will not be as large scale as usual. They say there will even be New Year's fireworks in Tbilisi. Perhaps at least it will help residents forget about their problems and believe in a New Year's miracle.
Поверить в новогоднее чудо.